So who can we talk to? Who are we supposed to talk to? Well, I think we can kind of start with anybody who's married. You have to talk to your spouse about money. I hear so much of spouses having separate checking accounts, separate bank accounts, separate this, separate that. This is in his name, this is in her name. That is so dangerous. That just shows a lack of trust, to be honest. You have to be able to trust your spouse. This needs to be somebody that you can come to and talk about your finances and have honest conversations about things that are directly affecting them as well as yourself. Everything that you're getting into, if you're married, legally they're getting into as well. And so they need to have a say. They need to have a say in what's going on in the household. They need to have a say in how we manage our money. You need to be working together. So this needs to be somebody that you can sit down and trust and talk to. And if it's not, the problems may run far deeper than not being able to talk about money. So past being married and being able to talk to your spouse, you can also talk to your parents in many cases. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of people's parents don't make the best decisions when it comes to money. These are not the people I'm talking about. I'm talking about people that you have a good relationship with, you can trust, and you can sit down and have an honest conversation about, hey, mom and dad, well, I have this thing going on. Have you had this kind of experience in your own life? And see if they can help you. My guess is they've gone through a lot of things that you haven't, and so they could probably sit down and give you some honest answers. Whether or not they're things that you want to consider, who knows? But it would be good to get those insights into how your parents have dealt with experiences that you have yet to have. Then even further, if you have a really close friend who you know does well, has a good handle on their personal finances, then call that person. Tell that person you want to sit down and have coffee or have lunch or something, and just say, can I ask you some personal questions? Can I ask you some things that are particularly troubling to yourself, or particularly issues to yourself, that you may be able to learn from them? You may be able to see what's going on in their life and say, I want that thing. And that might be something that could really help you. Once again, this needs to be somebody who is extremely trustworthy. We don't want to open up about our money situation to people who, like I said earlier, it's a matter of not wanting to get hurt. We don't want to get hurt, especially by people who we see as friends. So if you don't trust the person with everything, then I really wouldn't step into that space with them. I wouldn't talk about things that are extremely personal with that person. That could just lead to some very big issues that you really don't want to deal with. So who haven't I talked about? That's a pretty obvious answer. Well, financial coaches and financial advisors, right? Well, there's a reason that I leave them to the end, and that is because I am not a huge fan of the financial advisor being somebody that you talk to and trust with everything. I believe that you need to make the decisions on your own, and then you can use advisors that you trust to put things into action for you. And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of advisors who give really good advice. They do really well by their clients, but most of them by their nature are salespeople. And nothing's wrong with being a salesperson, but in order to sit down across the table from someone and have an honest conversation and them do what's best for you in all cases, that person doesn't need to have the incentive to sell you a particular product. They need to do what's best for you in all cases, not just in most cases. Financial coaches, I am very fond of. I am one myself. I offer those services. Like I said, you can check that out at my website, www.mnowithdylan.com. And you can click on the Work with Dylan tab, and we can set up a financial coaching session. Financial coaches are different than financial advisors. Financial coaches are not trying to sell you products. They're not trying to get in your pockets in any other way than paying a particular fee for the advice and the time that they offer you. And if you can find somebody like that you trust and that gives good advice and that you want to work with long term, that could be an extremely valuable asset to you and your financial situation. One more group of people that it would be very useful to talk to about your finances, about your money, about your situation, are actually your children. If you have children and your children are old enough to to start understanding some things about money, what money is for, the things that we want to do with money, especially if you're already in a good place. And even if you're not and you're trying to turn the corner, it's great to sit your kids down and go, hey, look at these situations, look at these particular sets of decisions that you're going to have to make when you're an adult and you have to pay your own bills and you have to go make your own money. And make sure that they understand that money is not something just to, oh, I made money, now I get to spend it. Made money, now I get to spend it. It's far more nuanced than that, and they're going to require the education, the knowledge that you can provide them to understand about money better. And there's no better time than now if your child is of an age that understands some basic concepts. As early as elementary school age, you can start just talking to them about some very simple, very straightforward concepts, and it'll pay off in the long term, and maybe they won't make the mistakes that you've made. So let's talk about this for just a second. What does discontentment look like? Discontentment may look like envy, jealousy, covetousness. You've heard all these words. These are things that are directly from the Bible, directly from the scriptures that are exactly what discontentment looks like. That idea of envy is that you don't want other people to have things because you don't think that you can attain those things. And how messed up is that? How messed up is the fact that I don't want you to have it because I don't think I can get it? That's a pretty scary place to be mentally and emotionally. The idea of jealousy is looking and going, I want what that person has. I feel like I should have that too. I should have that thing too. I should have that money too. And once again, super dangerous place to be if you are jealous every time that you look up, if you are looking at what other people have and just keep thinking, I need that thing. I want that thing because they have it. Also, that idea of coveting what other people have is extremely, extremely dangerous. All of these things though, envy, jealousy, covetousness, they're all going to lead you to being more and more discontent with your own life and where you are financially. Discontentment also looks like grumbling, complaining, moaning. All of these things are just keys of what discontentment looks like. If you look at your own life and you see that, man, I gripe a lot, I gossip a lot, I groan and moan about what other people have and what other people are doing that maybe I'm not doing or I don't have the opportunity to do, you probably need to check yourself. You probably need to spend some time reading scripture. Like I said, most of these ideas of contentment and discontentment are coming directly from the Bible. I'm a person of faith. If you're not, that's okay. You can still learn a lot from these particular concepts that I'm trying to cover. Discontentment is dangerous no matter what you believe. If you're always griping, if you're always just ate up with what other people are doing, then that's going to scar you emotionally. That's going to hurt you in the long term. That's a habit that you can fall into that is extremely, extremely dangerous. The thing that we like to do most, I feel like, in our culture is to compare. We look at social media and we see somebody else's highlight reel and we say, oh, that looks really good. Oh, that's awesome. I have to keep up with them. Have you heard of keeping up with the Joneses? That's exactly what that is. But it's not real. It's not a real thing. You're looking at other people who you don't know what they've had to go through to get that thing. You don't know maybe the amount of work or the lack of such that went into attaining something. They might not have the same life. They probably don't. They probably don't have the same life or the same plans for life that you have. So looking at what somebody else has and saying, oh, that's awesome. I have to have that. I want that. And it being simply because you see that other people have it, that's a dangerous place to be. That's a tough place to be in your own life because once again, that's going to scar you emotionally. That's going to scar you in growing in your finances, in your life in general. It's going to scar you and make it to where every time you see something that you want, you see something that somebody else has that you attribute that person as being wealthy or cool or whatever it may be, you're going to have to go after that thing. And that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt when you're spending exorbitant amounts of money on things that aren't necessary, when you have payments that you don't need to have just because you want things that people that you've never met and you might even not like have. Discontentment can also cause a couple of other things. It can cause that bitterness inside of you. It can make you really sour. You ever see people with that sour face that just, you're like, that person's probably not happy with what's going on. It can make you bitter. It can make you angry. Once again, all this ties into some of the things I was talking about earlier with your moaning and groaning and all of that. But if you're seeing that in yourself, you can see that discontentment is creeping in. This is the big one, and I say this for the last point of what is discontentment, because I think we can all relate. Worry and anxiety is discontentment. Worrying about tomorrow, worrying about not having, worrying about not keeping up is discontentment. And being anxious about things that are going to occur that are, in most cases, trivial in our lives, honestly. We get anxiety about trivial things simply because we're discontent with our own lives. We're not happy with where we are. Therefore, we put all of our chips on the table. We push everything in. We're all in on this particular moment or this particular event. And we get extremely anxious with what's going on. That's discontentment. That is you saying, I'm not happy with where I'm at. I am not content where I'm at. I'm not grateful for what I have and where I am. I need more to get to that place. Discontentment. That's exactly what discontentment is. So all of those things cause financial stress. So what about alleviating financial stress? I said that today's about hard work, right? And I kind of want to preface all of this by saying that I don't believe that you can just work your way out of every hole. I believe there's a certain amount of tragedy and a certain amount of situation that is hard to get over. But that doesn't mean that you can't work hard to get to a better place. That doesn't mean that maybe you're going to be able to make it to the point that somebody else can because of where they started. But it doesn't mean that you can't be in a better place than you are today. And that's really what this video is predicated on, is that the hard work that you're willing to do can alleviate a lot of your stress, because what it can do is it can allow you to decrease that amount of debt that you have that's causing your financial stress. It can help you increase your income because you're working harder, you're working more, and it can put those blinders on you to help you not have that view of, I'm fearful that I'm missing out on this thing that other people are doing, or that I'm not taking advantage of all this financing that I can get my hands on, or I'm not buying this new car that I feel like I deserve just because I'm 25 or however old you are. And so financial stresses can be alleviated by hard work. It's one of the best cures for it. I'm not saying it's the only cure for your financial stress. I'm just saying, in my own life, whenever financial stress occurs, one of the best ways to get rid of it, go to work. So just naturally, it's our design to work. Do you ever get that feeling of, especially during the coronavirus lockdown, that feeling that you've lost some meaning, you've lost some passion, you've lost some willingness to get up and get after it and go and follow your routine and all of those things? It's because you were designed to work. Maybe you weren't designed to be a cog in a wheel, but you were designed to work. God has designed us to go and work and do good things. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna do exactly what you love to do all the time. That doesn't mean that everything's gonna be perfectly fulfilling, or the career that you have is the career that you're supposed to have long term. But you were supposed to work. You were supposed to go earn what you have. There's dignity in working as well. When we work, we're actually using the skills that we have. There's a particular set of skills that we were all given. They're all different. They don't match up perfectly with any other person. We were given a unique set of skills that we can take into the workplace, we can take into the whatever field we're in, we can take into starting our own business and maximize on those skills and create something of value. Create value within a company, create value in our own company. We can do those things because we were given a unique set of skills, and those skills weren't meant to be sat on. They were meant that we would go and work. It was meant that we would go and use those skills to create value and do good things. And why are we working in the first place? We're working so that we can take these resources, whatever these resources may be, and grow these things into something new and something different. And we use our skills to do that. It's a lot like gardening, right? When you go and you plant a seed and you water that seed, and let's say it's a particular flower, and you're having to prune that flower over time, and you're having to make sure that you're working at it, right? That you're keeping up with it. Because if you, in this hot sun, if you go and forget to water it for a number of days, if you don't give it the attention that it needs, if you don't do the hard work of going outside every day and tending to the things that you have sown into the ground, then those things will die. And so what our work is supposed to do is supposed to allow us to grow things, whether it be our own abilities or whether it be our relationships with other people, whether it be, like I said earlier, a creation of value in a business that we create. All those things are growth from the use of your skills in the hard work that you do. So what's another reason that we work? We work to serve. We work to serve others. We have this particular set of skills that we can use in service of other people or in service of organizations, and that can provide a lot of good and do a lot of good things. And so working in that way is something we were meant to do. We were meant to go serve. We were meant to help others in the ways that we can and with the skills that we're given. So ultimately, what I'm trying to get at is that this idea of work is valuable and can help you financially. And so work should be a plan. It should be maybe not a means to an end, but a means to something that you are trying to achieve, something that you're trying to do. And so work should have a meaning. It should have something that you're particularly trying to do that is going to be useful long term tied to it. Because if your work was meaningless, so should be the benefits of that work, right? So if you were going to work and doing nothing, in essence, should you get paid anything? Should you get the rewards of working if you didn't do any work? No, we live in a very much cause and effect world, to where if you're doing something that is value producing, then you're going to reap the benefits of that value that you produced. So if you were interested, I'm just going to throw these things out there. These are some things that are characteristics of generous people. And I think it's important to note, because you'll start seeing some of these things in yourself if you're giving consistently. You don't give in order to see these things, but these are effects of the fact that you give money and you give on a regular basis and of a certain amount, right? Generous people are typically really selfless, and that's obvious, right? They're more selfless than the next guy because they're willing to give up something that is rightfully theirs, they worked for and they earned. They're willing to give that up to something that they believe in, to create value in another place, and to allow their money to be used for a good that is greater than themselves. Generous people are also very optimistic. I know that's kind of strange, like, okay, generous, optimistic. Well, think about this. There are a lot of ways that your generosity can be negatively used. And like I said earlier, you need to do your research in order to keep that from happening as much as possible, that you're not having these negative uses of your giving. But sometimes that is the case. And obviously you want to stop that giving as soon as possible. But these people who are giving are very optimistic. And why is this the case? Because they're still looking at things through a positive lens and saying, well, I'm still going to give my money. I'm going to give my money to these things that I believe in. And if something like that happens, then we'll adjust. But I'm willing to give. See, some people aren't willing to give because they think, oh, so somebody's going to misuse my money. Well, the people who are actually generous are looking at it through an optimistic point of view and saying, well, I'm going to give my money because I believe in it. And if I'm ever shown anything to the contrary, then I will make the change at that point. But they're not going to stop their giving because of a possible negative. These generous people also believe that the world can be a better place, and they believe that their money can be used to do so. If you believe that the world can be a better place than it is, then you're a relatively optimistic person. And if you're giving your money to things that you believe in, then that's showing pretty clearly that you believe that good can be done and value can be created from the money that you give. Another characteristic of these generous people is they're typically very contrarian, right? If you look at somebody who's generous, they're pretty strong-willed as far as they're willing to look out into the world and see what other people are doing and say, I'm going to do things a different way because I believe in other things. And they're not going to allow their value system to be manipulated by things external to themselves. They're going to look very different than the world looks. People are very consumer driven. They want to buy things. They want to be, on the tip top of the new things and keeping up with the Joneses and all of these things. Generous people are going to look and they're going to go, you know what? I like those things, but I believe my money can create more value in other places. I don't believe that I have to consume everything that I have. I believe that I can create value for other people in other ways. And so they're contrarian in that way. They're different from what the common viewpoint is. Something that they don't do is they don't look at the world as just a place where they can go to gain as much as they can gain. If that were the case, then maybe they would invest all their money, or maybe they would go buy as many things as they could possibly buy and live their life that way. But they see the world as a place where they can make changes and they can create value for other people, and it's not just something to gain. So generous people, extremely contrarian, extremely different from the typical individual. And this is going to tie into the second episode that we did on contentment is key, right? Generous people are content. Generous people are grateful for what they have. They realize needs. They realize that there are legitimate things that they can give their money to, legitimate things that they can allow themselves to be a part of that are value maximizing to them, that are aligned with what they believe, and they're willing to do that. These people are extremely content. These people are happy with where they're at, and they're willing to give up some things that they have in return for maybe the fulfillment or maybe the value that they see created in other places by the money that they're willing to give. Well, we'll start with giving, right? Giving is an attractive thing. Like, we don't like people who are really selfish. We don't like people who put off this vibe of only wanting to do things for themselves, only wanting to spend money on themselves, only want to add value to their own agenda. That's not an attractive thing. And we don't say this very often. We don't say that it's not attractive. We don't say that it's not something that we like or something. We like people who are willing to give their money. We like people who are willing to give their time. We like people who are willing to sacrifice something for something that they believe in. We like that. Now let's get this straight. Giving is not so important that you can only give, right? So if you were just giving all of your money away, then you're not taking care of your own home. And that's a big issue. You have to take care of your own home. You have to pay the bills that you have to pay. Notice I said have to, not want to. I'm not talking about paying car notes that are exorbitant amounts. I'm not talking about, paying on your couch that you just had to have that was a designer. I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about paying your bills, paying your lights, your water, your rent, your mortgage, whatever it is. keeping a roof over your head, doing the essential things, the needs, right? If you're not able to do the needs because you give too much, then that's an issue. But giving may take some of the wants, but that may be perfectly fine. That may be a perfectly okay thing as long as it's maintaining that financial balance. So why does saving matter? Well, Dylan, that's pretty straightforward. You need savings so you can buy things in the future, and so you can, have money when you retire. And well, is it that simple? Is it that simple? Do you guys really understand that concept? Because the fact that most Americans can't cover a $400 expense tells me that may not be the case. You don't understand the importance of why you should save. Saving is an extremely important part of financial balance and of your financial health. You need money for a rainy day. You ever heard, save your money for a rainy day? You know why we do that? Because when it rains, you need an umbrella. You need something that's going to protect you, right? Now, that's not to say money is any type of security, but if it's hot and it's summertime, which it is right now, and I hate the heat, and your air conditioner goes out, that's an issue that you need to solve today. That is not something that you need to be dealing with for months and months and months. No, you need to deal with that today. There needs to be a guy out at my house fixing my air conditioner today if it goes out. And the fact that that's the case, and the fact that I don't want to go into debt to purchase things that I need to have some kind of rainy day emergency fund. So that money is for emergencies only. We're talking about funds that can only be used for things like your air conditioner going out, or things like your car breaking down, or any number of things like that. This is not for wants. This is needs. These are things that have to be done today, or else there's going to be extreme discomfort. There's going to be, I can't get to work. I can't do this. It's an emergency fund. So that's a particular reason that savings is important. But savings is also important because when you retire, when you're old and you don't want to work, I say old, you don't have to retire when you're old. Old means a different thing to everybody, but when you're older and it's time to retire, you want to have money so that you can enjoy your retirement, so that you're not eating beans and cornbread every night and some of you may like beans and cornbread. I like beans and cornbread too. I'm just saying, you don't have to eat that every night when you're in retirement, because you have money. You have money to spend on things that you want, and you're able to live a comfortable lifestyle. The only way you're going to do that is if you make saving some kind of priority in your financial life prior to that time. So one big part of your financial balance is investing for the future. Well, that's a big part of the savings aspect of the financial balance that we're talking about here. You have to be able to spend money in a way that is balanced with your saving and giving. If you just spend everything that you have, that's going to be detrimental to your future. It's a very common thing where you see people, they'll use everything they have today on today, and not because they have to, because they choose to. Don't get me wrong. Some people in their particular situations have to spend their entire paycheck on today. But most of you do not. And I'm speaking to most of you. Most of you do not have to spend everything that you have on today. And so I'm not saying that spending's wrong. I'm not saying don't spend money. Spend money. Enjoy what you have, or else you're not going to feel very happy about going and earning it. You're not going to feel very happy about working hard to receive it. But you need to be able to buy something that you want and do it in balance with the rest of your financial life of saving and giving money in particular proportions. Spending is going to be the largest proportion that you have, period. Between your bills and your wants and your eating out and all of these things, it's going to be more than your giving and your saving combined. And that's fine. That's extremely normal. But you have to find those proportions that are right for you, the proportions that keep you in balance, to where you're not emotionally becoming too much of a miser by saving too much, or too much of somebody who's not taking care of their own home because they're giving too much, or somebody who's just so wrapped up in consuming as much as they can because they're spending and spending and spending. There must be a balance. And that's why all of this is important. That's why all of this matters, all of these three uses of money, because it can change who you are in a real sense.